This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The candidates have submitted their bid to run for the most powerful position in African football ahead of the elections in March 2021. The long road to the CAF presidency now awaits the 5 candidates who will know whether they will have a chance to unseat incumbent Ahmad from the Cairo-based football organization. The stakes are high and football delegates will have their work cut out when the final list of contenders will be announced in January. Sports Scene takes a closer look at the 2021 African football elections. Hello and welcome to your weekly sports program that brings you all the sporting news and reviews from an African perspective. We will highlight the thrill of victory while also showing you the agony of defeat. I'm Richard Ntai in Nairobi. This is Sports Scene. Let's get real, let's get live, let's get started. Here's what's coming up in the show. Tanzanian football chief Wallace Karia announces bid for FIFA council set. And Caster Semenya to appeal to European Union Court of Human Rights over testosterone ruling. Once again, welcome to Sports Scene. So good to have you with us. Let's kick off with 5 candidates who declared interest for president of the Confederation of African Football during the forthcoming elections in March 2021. Now, among them is the incumbent Ahmad, the Malagasy football administrator who has been at the helm of the Cairo-based organization since 2017. But he faces a new red flag from FIFA over a TV deal, in addition to other pending investigations from FIFA on leadership and integrity at CAF. CGTN's Adel Al-Mafroui reports from Cairo. Let's take a look.
In 2017, African football associations and FIFA united their efforts to push Issa Hayatou, who have sat on the helm of CAF for 29 years. Ahmad has then become the symbol of change in African football.
During Ahmad's first period, we've seen notable changes in club competitions. There have been clear and fixed schedules for Champions League and the Confederation Cup. CAF prizes were enhanced, and even the organization of the draw ceremonies became much better.
Under his leadership, Africa has seen its Cup of Nations grow to 24 teams. Video assistant refereeing was introduced for the first time. Critics argue, though, that Ahmad should not take credit for such major changes in African football.
FIFA in general and Infantino in particular managed to grow his influence in CAF. They changed the Africa Cup of Nations schedule from winter back to summer and even increased the AFCON teams, which was seen as a FIFA vision. Ahmad appears to have been forced to do many things in order to remain in his position. The most astonishing of them was to have Fatma Samura, the FIFA Secretary General, to come to Cairo to run CAF and audit. All this raised question marks on Ahmad's conduct and management.
After the late former Secretary General Amr Fahmy blew the whistle over Ahmad's corruption, FIFA investigated the allegations. CAF was audited twice. A leaked document from the first audit in February indicated missing funds for some $20 million.
Since March 2017 until January 2020, he's accused of pocketing some $3 million. His spending is absurd. Leaked documents talk about lavish flights and restaurants. Not only his candidacy, but even his current existence is a burden for CAF. The Ethics Committee will condemn him. I believe it's a matter of time.
Another ongoing investigation is looking into CAF's $1 million deal with sports manufacturer Tactical Steel. The company's owner is known to be one of Ahmad's close friends. FIFA's Ethics Committee could issue its final report by the end of November.
There is a possibility the entire CAF temple collapses. If FIFA's Ethics Committee ends Ahmad before the election next year, there are many more names that could emerge as corrupt, which could threaten the entire election process. This is a possibility.
Whether he's found guilty or not, Ahmad's term will always bring memories of countless FIFA ethics violations accusations. And until FIFA announces its verdict, it appears that 4 other candidates are waiting to replace him for the CAF presidency. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The fallout in the CAF top leadership could spill into next year's elections as federations and influential football leaders prepare for the polls. Nigerian football president Ahmad, who was CAF senior vice president, was ousted from his position after falling out with favor with CAF president Ahmad. Now, he has now thrown his weight behind Ahmad's biggest challenger, South African candidate Patrice Motsepe. From Nigeria, CGTN's Deji Badmus reports.
Back in 2017, the both seemed an inseparable item. Both Ahmad and Ahmadu Pinnick joined forces to wrestle power from the longtime president of CAF, Issa Hayatu, who had by then been in charge of African football for 29 years. With Ahmad becoming president, Pinnick would later go on to be his deputy as first vice president of CAF, effectively becoming the second most powerful person in African football. But both men would later fall apart, with Ahmad literally sacking Pinnick as his deputy.
From what I gathered, it's more of Ahmadu becoming more popular than he thought he would be. You get insecure when people you think should be behind you are now at par with you. You have a feeling that the same way this man could engineer my coming in, you can also engineer my leaving the stage.
With Ahmad now seeking a second term in office, Pinnick, who had initially indicated his intention to run against him, has since dropped his ambition and instead pitched tent with South Africa's Patrice Motsepe, who is one of 4 other candidates seeking to replace Ahmad as CAF president, something the dynamics could pose a challenge for Ahmad.
I believe this is going to be one of the most divisive elections that CAF will be holding in more than 4 decades. To start with, I foresee a situation whereby Ahmad will be disqualified. You remember that he is under investigation by FIFA for ethical breaches. As a matter of fact, he's been found guilty just for them to give him a sentence, which is most likely to be a ban from 2 to 10 years.
Take it or leave it, Pinnick has played his way into African politics, even international politics as high as FIFA. And so you can be sure that he knows what it takes. Kicking Issa Hayatu out of office was not a child's play. And so going into this election and putting his weight behind Motsepe, I think there's no guarantee that Motsepe will come out of, but of course, you can be sure they will ruffle shoulders with Ahmad going into this one.
Despite the controversy over his handling of CAF so far and a corruption probe hanging over his head, Ahmad says he has the support of at least 40 national football federations for his second-term bid. If that is truly the case and the 40 choose to stick by him till the March 2021 election, then his second-term bid is as good as done and dusted, since the winner of the election would only be needing a simple majority or about 28 votes to win.
If Ahmad is disqualified, that means we now have 4 candidates jostling for the position. You have Motsepe of South Africa, who is likely to be the preferred candidate. I foresee the Anglophone bloc prevailing because of the experience of Motsepe.
However the election goes next year, one thing is certain. The Confederation of African Football is a very much divided house, and whoever emerges winner of the election will definitely have their work cut out. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
South African businessman Patrice Motsepe has been confirmed as a surprise candidate for the African Football Elections presidency earlier this week. The business tycoon, who is also owner of South Africa's Mamelodi Sundowns Football Club, has already received the backing from the football associations of Botswana, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria. But does he really stand a chance is the question. CGTN CS Duplessis takes a look.
South African billionaire Patrice Motsepe caused quite a stir earlier this week as he was announced as one of the candidates contesting the top job in African football. The man who is married to South African President Cyril Ramaphosa's sister will have his work cut out to ascend to the CAF presidency.
Definitely surprised. He's obviously stamped or left a huge footprint on the continent through Mamelodi Sundowns, and what Peter Mosimane and the team have been able to achieve. But he's not only riding on that particular ticket, on that sort of background. He's got huge financial backing, and it bodes well for South Africa should he get voted in.
It remains to be seen if one of the richest men on the continent can garner enough support to claim the top job in African football. But should he be successful, it will signal the start of a new chapter for the organisation at a time when new leadership is required.
Maybe with him in the picture, it also talks to, is it time to move away from the normal FA presidents and get for someone who's going to take CAF on a different trajectory altogether in terms of how to reshape and how to come with a different CAF to run African football. Because to be honest, there are a lot of things which have not been done right. Even under the 29-year rule of Issa Hayatou, this regime that came in 2017 with a lot of promises has failed in many different areas to transform our game.
I just really hope that, this whole, there's a lot of negativity in and around and skepticism in and around our game, and I hope whoever takes over, whether it's Patrice or one of the others, that they're able to change that perception about the African game.
The man currently in the CAF hot seat faces a slew of allegations around his actions as president of the organisation, which could bode well for Motsepe, who himself still needs to make it past the FIFA Ethics Committee before he can officially throw his name into the election hat.
One of the things that is very interesting was that Ahmad is being backed by 46 nations. But already from those so-called 46 nations, we've seen close to more than 15, if not close to 15 of them, already aligning themselves with the different candidates. It tells you that it is never as it seems in African football. You'll have to wait for the 12th of March in Morocco and see who will be the next CAF president.
Motsepe's surprise candidature and a strong backing from leading figures in world football has significantly altered the arithmetic of the CAF leadership contest. With the next FIFA elections around the corner, Motsepe could be important in rallying the African vote for the incumbent Gianni Infantino, who has shown keen interest in the South African taking over in Cairo. CS2+C, CGTN, Johannesburg.
Well, for more on this topic, we are pleased to welcome our correspondent, CS2+C, live from Johannesburg, South Africa. To start us off, CS, I'm going to tell you right now, a surprise candidate. Indeed, a lot of people didn't see Patrice Motsepe coming. Briefly outline what African football can expect from a potential Motsepe administration at CAF.
Well, Richard, it begs the question, why a man who's worth $2.2 billion US, he speaks at the World Economic Forum, he has a brand new bank, he's just invested in a mobile operator, and of course is married to the president of South Africa's sister, has any time for football. He has Mamelodi Sundowns that he keeps a close eye on, but from a distance. But the reason is because he believes he can fix African football. So I think immediately he's got to work on a broadcast deal to try and get the football back on our television screens, because in Southern Africa we're streaming the games on the internet and a lot of people can't afford the data to stream those games. So he needs to work on a broadcast deal. He needs to bring some administrative reform to CAF, what can only be described as a dysfunctional organization. And I think also he has a substantial network all over the continent where he'll be looking to tap into that network to try and generate some corporate funding into CAF, so that reliance on FIFA and the Africa Cup of Nations, which is about 80% of their revenue, comes from. So I think from Patrice you can expect someone who'll be diligent, he'll have a strong team around him, and he'll be focused on trying to do what's good for African football.
All right, there were a lot of things you said about Patrice Motsepe that I didn't know myself. Well, if recent reports are accurate, CS, why do you think top powers at FIFA have withdrawn their support of the current president, Ahmad?
Well, it's a very good question, because at the end of the day, you've got Gianni Infantino sitting in FIFA's hot seat. He's looking at another term. He needs to try and find out where he can bolster that support. And he's looking at Africa. He's the one that called the meeting in Nairobi to get these football powers together to discuss the nomination of Patrice Motsepe. And it must be said that Patrice was reluctant at first. He needed some convincing before he agreed to run for the CAF presidency. But all makes sense now. If you put one and one together, it makes two, because Infantino wants one of his men sitting in Cairo so that he can garner that support from the African bloc. I mean, that's 54 member countries that he'll be relying on, especially with Europe's 55, and it gets quite interesting. But at the end of the day, he wants some stability at CAF because he sees Patrice as the type of guy that can bring some stability, some infrastructure, and as well as some much-needed revenue back into African football.
All right, CS, before I let you go, I've got one more question we've got to discuss. How will CAF's handling of football in Africa during the pandemic influence the forthcoming elections?
Well, there's a lot of sort of question marks around what CAF have done with COVID-19, and, you know, with a big cloud hanging over Ahmad, and he's very much in the crosshairs of the FIFA Ethics Committee as well as the French police. You know, there's a lot that's going on there, and maybe a little bit of misdirection has happened along the way, a lack of trust potentially in the leadership. And if you look at Ahmad with 40 supporting nations, he still feels confident going into the elections. But overall, with the grey areas in the way they've handled COVID-19 and this global pandemic, it could well mean that their alliances formed in other places, and that there's always these clandestine meetings happening behind closed doors to see who goes with who and who promises what, because at the end of the day, an election's about making promises, and it's about also delivering on those promises once you ascend to power. But the 12th of March in Rabat in Morocco will be that defining moment when we find out who indeed is the next CAF president.
All right, CS du Plessis, always great talking to you. Thanks for joining us. Let's move on. The Confederation of African Football is expected to communicate the names of successful candidates for the post of CAF president by January the 11th, 2021. Candidates will have to have passed the ethics and integrity vetting before being cleared to run for the office. Here are the 5 candidates who have applied for the top job at African football.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Welcome back to the program. We're still focusing on the upcoming African football polls where, apart from the presidency, other elected positions will be up for grabs during the elections next year. The prestigious FIFA Council post has attracted a number of contenders, including Tanzania's football chief, Wallace Karia. CGTN's Isaac Lukando has more.
Tanzania Football Federation President Wallace Karia is gearing up for battle. He is vying for one of 37 seats available on the FIFA Council, the main decision-making organ of the World Football governing body. This sports analyst says Karia's success in leading Tanzanian football may give him an edge.
Tanzania qualified for the Africa Cup of Nations after close to 40 years. Another credit to Karia is qualifying for the CHAN Championships. Tanzania has managed to qualify in his 3 years in leadership.
Karia is contesting for the position along with several other Confederation of African Football members from English-speaking countries. He faces a challenge from the heads of football organizations in Kenya, Nigeria, Zambia, and Malawi.
You make decisions on football systems. You decide on global football budgets. But there is also the African budget. There are funds coming into member countries. Tanzania is one of those countries, getting up to $700,000 every year. So he can directly make the case for Tanzania in the council for the benefit of the country.
FIFA has 7 council positions for Africa, 2 seats each for English and French-speaking countries, 1 automatic slot for the Confederation of African Football president, 1 for an Arab-speaking country, and 1 slot for women. The FIFA Council is the supervisory and strategic organ of the World Football governing body, which sets the vision for the organization as well as global football. Karia has been the leader of the Council of East and Central African Football Associations, CECAFA, for a year. He was also named earlier this year in a special FIFA committee tasked to reform the structure of Africa zonal associations. Now he hopes to translate his experience in these posts into votes. Isaac Lukando, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
All right, to athletics news now. An Olympic and world 800 meters champion, Caster Semenya, is determined to return to the track without restrictions. Semenya is barred from competing in certain races unless she agrees to artificially lower testosterone levels, which is seen as a competitive advantage. Semenya's legal team is preparing to approach the European Court of Human Rights to contest the ban. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
Lawyers for double Olympic gold medalist and 3-time world 800-meter champion Caster Semenya are taking her fight to the European Court for Human Rights. Semenya is barred from competing because of naturally elevated testosterone levels caused by differences in sexual development.
She cannot run between 400 and 1500 meters. Those are the regulations that stipulate that she can't do so. She can do so, however, if she has medical treatment in terms of medicines, alternatively invasive surgical treatment. But frankly, Caster won't have either. And if she's going to run, she's going to run freely and openly as Caster.
Semenya has been in a drawn-out gender battle with the IAAF since clinching the world title in 2009. She's lost 2 challenges against the body in the last 2 years at the Court of Arbitration for Sport and the Swiss Federal Supreme Court.
I can't say I'm targeted because of I'm an African black woman. What I can say is that I'm targeted because I'm undefeated. If you don't want women, just scratch them out of competitions. And then we'll go sit there, do whatever we do best. Because now you're going to categorize. What is it that you're categorizing?
While her legal team takes care of businesses, Semenya's kept her mind on the postponed 2021 Tokyo Olympics.
She's incredibly strong, and for a young person, she turns 30 in January. She has an indomitable spirit and very, very strong in terms of her willpower, her strength of mind, her strength of being, and her absolute discipline.
South Africa's greatest athlete has the backing of Parliament at home, the African Union and the United Nations. Public support is also growing from adoring fans.
I definitely think she should run because I feel that it's not fair. She did not decide to be the way she is. She was created that way and she is classified as female. So she deserves every right of any female in the world.
She's a role model to many kids, considering she's coming from a really poor family, from a rural village, you know, where like there's less opportunities for you to succeed. I mean, she is the icon to many people, especially children who are growing up, who are aspiring to be athletes like her.
This might be a long road for Semenya, but it is an important fight and could redefine the grey area for athletes with differences in sex development.
Whether Custer wins or loses, I've always said to Custer, she wins at the end of the day. She's ahead of the curve and has always been ahead of the curve, and she understands that, by the way. She fully understands what taking this fight to the court actually means.
Semenya's team is optimistic of a win this time round, although it may not be in time to defend her Olympic title. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Egypt held the biggest women football tryouts the country has seen. Hundreds of girls from all over Egypt came to Cairo for the 3 days tryouts. The Egyptian Football Association wants to restructure the women's national team in hopes of enhancing Egypt's performance in the sport. Here's CGTN's Adel Al-Mahroui with more.
Egypt, the country with the most Africa Cup of Nations titles, is one of the weakest teams on the continent in women football. But that is about to change. The Egyptian Football Association has appointed a new coaching staff and recently held the biggest women football tryouts yet in the country.
To come here, we held a local tournament in Port Said City. Through it, we chose the best students to bring them here to Cairo. Women football in our city is still developing. We have a few teams and the competitions are quite poor. This year is a great step for women football.
The same model has been applied across Egypt. Selection process kept filtering talents until 98 finalists came here to Cairo from 14 different governorships, half of the country's 27. Each girl is hoping the new women's national team coach will pick her.
This is a great start to inspire girls and create more teams in Egypt. Hopefully, it will create a strong foundation for women football. I think with 2 or 3 years, we're going to have a strong national team.
To expand the sport even further, the EFA made a landmark agreement with the Education Ministry to introduce women football in all public schools by the next academic year. Girls in middle or high school will get bonus grades when they join their school's women football team.
We want to expand the player bases in women football. The biggest number of kids are in school, so we approached the Ministry of Education to spread the sport.
There are definitely many unknown talents in schools. Besides these tryouts, if we visit each school, we'll find more. It's a great chance for the girls. I'm sure there are great football stars among them.
EFA will hold the tryouts biannually. The next will be in February. They'll include the remaining 13 governorships in Egypt. Adel Al-Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.